Pretty simple recipe. There's a little bit that couple different things going on at the same time, but for the most part, it should be pretty easy to get through. So it's going to start by melting chocolate and whipping up some egg yolks, and then we'll fold those into each other, and then we'll add in some whipped cream, and then it just takes putting it into either your pan or your molds and popping it in the freezer until they're all set. So I have water that's heating up right now, and once when that's at a boil, I'm going to take it off so I can melt the chocolate down. So we're melting over a double boiler. I have my chocolate and the butter in a bowl, a heat-safe bowl, so no plastic, but metal or glass will work just fine. And then I also have a small pot. I have a small pot, and there's a 1/4 cup of honey that's in there. So we're going to bring that up to a boil in a second once when we get our chocolate melted. And that's going to get added into our egg yolks once when we start whipping those up. Oh, that's a good idea. So the Chocolate Marquis itself is actually gluten-free, and the dirt it's called, it's just a chocolate almond crumble is also gluten-free. But if you guys didn't feel like making the crumble part, you could just smash up a couple sleeves of Oreos and sprinkle that on top instead. Save yourself some time.
Did you mention what kind of chocolate you use?
Oh yeah. So for this recipe, it's important to use a good quality chocolate. That just helps make sure that your flavor is really strong. So I used so this one is called an Equal Exchange Chocolates. It's a fair trade chocolate, but like Godiva or Wegmans brand, any kind of chocolate that's just got that hard snap to it is going to be just fine for this recipe.
Okay. Does it have to be unsalted butter?
It doesn't have to be. It's not going to change the recipe at all. I just like using unsalted butter so I can control the amount of salt that goes into it by myself.
What about cocoa powder? Does it have to be dark or light?
The cocoa powder doesn't matter too much. It's such a small amount. It's not going to make a big difference. Okay. But I'm just using regular Hershey's dark chocolate powder.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so right now I have a pot of water. I'm just going to set the butter and the chocolate right on top and let that start melting. I cut my butter or my chocolate up into chunks about that big. I kind of just broke it along the squares that the chocolate came in itself. So you don't have to go through it with a knife or anything. Just break it up into little chunks.
Can you use those little pallets, you know, those little wafers?
For the chocolate?
Yeah.
I used a I think it was an 80% chocolate bar that I had bought at Wegmans. So it's not unsweetened, but it's just a very dark chocolate.
Okay.
Do you have to use dark chocolate?
You don't have to. This recipe could be made with milk chocolate or white chocolate. Dark chocolate's just the standard for it. but they'll all come out the same.
I believe I read dark chocolate is higher in antioxidants. It's better, healthy. It's healthier for you.
Right.
Yeah, dark chocolate is the best or the healthiest chocolate. None of them are, they all have sugar in it, so it's only so healthy. But yeah, dark chocolate has actually got some health benefits for you.
Yep.
You do want to keep the chocolate moving. Chocolate can be kind of delicate with the temperatures. So if you let it stand for too long, it can burn on the bottom. I'm going to set this back on the heat. So I just turn the heat down to low. Once when your water comes up to a boil, you can leave it on the heat just to make sure that you've got the steady steam going on. Just make sure you drop it down to a low heat so that the heat from the burner doesn't burn the sides of the chocolate at all.
Sometimes I've seen people melt chocolate in microwaves. Bad idea.
For this recipe, you could get away with it in the microwave. Yeah, the microwave isn't going to change the chocolate too much. So if you think, it's definitely easier. So you could do it in the microwave if you wanted to. I just like being able to see the chocolate because you do run the risk of burning it a little bit easier if you pop it in for a few seconds too long.
Now you all can't smell what she's making so far, but it smells great.
How do we get the scent on Zoom?
My scent button isn't working.
That's the next generation of Zoom.
Exactly.
They call that, there was like smell-o-vision, right?
Oh, smell-o-vision.
Yes,
Yeah.
television.
So the chocolate's about halfway there. I'm going to start up the egg yolks real quick. So I have the sugar. I just put it in a little cupcake paper, and I'm gonna slowly pour it into my egg yolks as I am starting the mixer. Can everyone still hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's going to take about 3 minutes. It's going to get really thick and foamy. And at that point, we're going to pop on the honey and bring it up just to a boil. It's such a little amount in the pan that you don't want it to get to a full boil, but once when it starts bubbling and you can tell it's really nice and hot, that's okay. That's just going to give the egg yolks a little heat so that it cooks and you're not eating raw egg yolks. All right. So the chocolate and butter is fully melted. There could be a few chunks in it, but it's going to be okay because it's going to sit for a second. So it'll melt down just a little bit further as it sits. So I think while we are waiting while we're waiting for the egg yolks to mix up, I'll show you the chocolate dirt real quick. So if you can see inside the bowl, I've got the almond flour, cocoa powder, and some sugar. And then I threw in just a pinch of salt. We're going to pour the butter over top of it. And then we'll give it a quick mix up.
You have to use almond flour?
You don't have to. You could use regular flour. Just for the sake of keeping it gluten-free, I decided to use almond flour tonight. All right, so you can see it's kind of crumbly still, but it's all really nice and mixed in well. It's gonna look kind of like dry sand. And we're just gonna pop this out onto a cheap tray and stick it in the oven for about 15 minutes. Halfway through, we'll mix it up a little bit just to break up the chunks. All right, so show you the egg yolk real quick. You can see it kind of went from being that yellow egg yolk to something kind of fluffy and very pale yellow. So at this point, I'm going to let it mix on a low to medium speed, and I'm going to get the honey going. So real quick while we got a second, I did buy these molds. I think they were $8 at Joann's Fabric. So that's an option for serving if you'd like to. They come out really easy. You just turn them upside down, pop the marquee out, or you can serve it in like a pie tin. And you just soak it in a little bit of hot water, the bottom of the tin, and then you can flip it over onto a plate and it should release just fine. All right, so our honey is starting to get little bubbles on it. I'm gonna get it just a few seconds more, and then we'll slowly pour it into our egg yolks, and then we'll pop it up onto high speed until it gets nice and thick. All right, so our honey has a nice amount of bubbles. We're gonna take it to our egg yolks. You want to change the Can it reach over there? Oh, yep, there we go. So slowly just add it in down one side of the mixer. So the reason we add the honey in slowly and down one side of the mixer is just so that it doesn't fly everywhere when you add it in. You just want to avoid the honey, especially hot honey, from getting thrown around so you don't burn yourself. So our egg whites or egg yolk are done. You can see they're really almost like a cream colored now instead of like a pale yellow. It's called a ribbon stage, so you should be able to pull up the whisk and it falls in a steady stream instead of all at once. Another way to test it is that you should be able to pull the whisk up and create figure eights on top of the egg yolks that are down there, and it should hold for a second before blending back into the rest of the mixture. So now I have that 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. I'm going to sprinkle it right on top. You can use the same spatula from your chocolate because you're going to combine them in a minute anyways. Just give it a nice fold. Just making a mess.
Don't worry, we clean up too, everybody. Don't worry.
So I have all of my cocoa powder combined into the egg yolk. We're going to put in a small amount right into your melted chocolate. Give it a real quick mix. So it'll start thickening up and cooling down a tiny bit, but that is normal. It's okay. And then we'll just add the rest of the egg yolk in. Folding it in. Be nice and gentle. You don't want to collapse the egg yolks too much.
What the?
And then in the same bowl, you don't even have to wash it. You're going to whip up your 1 cup of heavy cream. All right, now I have my whipped cream whipped up to a soft peak. Then same thing with the egg whites. We're just going to add a little bit. Get it folded in there. And then we'll just add all the rest of it. So we are just folding everything together until it's nice and combined. And then you'll have a nice thick cream mixture there. I'm just going to add it into my piping bag. I just have a large round tip attached.
Now we need taste division because it's looking real tasty.
That's where I come in, guys. I'll tell you how good it is. I promise.
Oh, thanks.
So I was setting it up earlier, but I didn't really go over it. But I like to put my piping bags over a cup. It just acts like somebody else is holding the bag for you while you fill it. So just gives you a little helping hand.
It makes it look very easy when you do that.
So I'm going to use my mold, just a little bit easier to get them out of there. But if you guys have that pie tin or cake pan or whatever you want, just go for that. Just fill it in, and then we'll go through and smooth out the top. I'm actually for the sake of showing one of these all plated up and garnished and stuff, I figured I'd do one on a plate. So we're just going to smooth this out. All right. And then we pop these into the freezer. Should take about an hour for them to get fully set, but you can leave it in overnight too if you'd like to do that. And then when they're done, you just push them out and you can serve them on a plate. So this is our dirt. Should be nice and soft and come to a little bit of a powder. I might have overcooked a couple of the edges. So we'll just get those out of there. We'll So it's going to be really crumbly and fine, kind of like a graham cracker crust. So I'm just going to pop this into the fridge to cool for a second, and then I can show you how I have been plating up this dessert.
Does anybody have any questions for Kat or suggestions for one of our next baking classes?
I got a question. I asked you before if we could use the wafers, like the melting chocolate. Could we do that or not?
Yeah, you could do that. Whatever you want to use to add the chocolate flavor. I just like using the chocolate bars.
Okay.
Personal preference, but yeah, you're more than welcome to use the chocolate melted flavors.
What else would you guys like to see us make in the future?
I don't know, some nice summertime desserts and easy, quick summertime recipes that are still healthy and
Yeah, I can definitely incorporate some of that.
great.
So I did bring a couple things just to throw on top. So about a little pint of ice cream, and if you've ever seen like fancy plated desserts online or on TV and stuff, they have this sauce they call a creme anglaise. It's really just melted ice cream. So
Now we know.
now you know.
Yeah.
So when you're making a dessert and you want to add a little extra fancy flair, just grab your favorite pint of ice cream and let it melt, and you can just throw some on top of there for a little bit of added flavor.
And what kind is that you got?
I bought dulce de leche. Just a standard caramel ice cream. I didn't want to go with any more chocolate because this recipe has so much chocolate in it. And then I also brought an orange, and I just sliced it up into little pieces to toss on top of there when it's set to go. But I will pull that stuff out real quick.
We need a flash freezer, don't we?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
I think we're really one of those fancy cooking shows.
So play with this however you like. So I've got my crumble. I'll just put a spoon off to the side of it. Maybe toss a couple pieces of orange around the side.
Okay. laid up.
Then use our super fancy.
Food in one day. The next day. Okay, yeah, yeah. I don't work weekends. Okay.
Play with the plating.
I'm outside. I run a zero turn.
So
Looks
Oh my
good.
gosh, it looks so good.
I'm coming over.
I know. Is there a drive-through?
Sorry guys, it's not gonna last that long.
Yeah.
It could go bad by then. We don't want that to happen, right?
I'll drive fast.